Hello, everybody. This is Julia, the Southern Therapist, and I am a widow of 11 years. This is episode 3. I call myself the Rogue Widow because in the past 11 years I've had to learn to go rogue about a lot of things to get myself through this journey of being a widow. If you are here today, I'm so glad that you're here today. And if it is because you are a widow, I am sorry that you are going through this journey, but I want to let you know you'll be okay. You really will be okay. The worst is over. If you are here, please do me a favor, smash the like button, leave me a comment and tell me how long you've been a widow or ask me a question, and subscribe so I can keep this channel going. I want to make sure that folks who need or want someone to talk to, doesn't even have to be a professional therapist, although I encourage it, but what I do understand is it's very difficult for you to some days just get out the front door. You will hear me say that a lot when I'm talking to you about putting one foot in front of the other, having energy just to shower, having energy to make a phone call. You will hear me talk about those things because they're very real. So if you are here and you found me, I'm so glad that you're here. I'm so glad that you're here. And again, there are things that I will remind you of constantly. You will be okay. The worst is over. The worst is over. So now, where are you? That worst part is over, and now you have come to an enlightenment that your loved one, your spouse, your beloved, your partner is not with you here anymore. My belief is spiritually we live on, and my loved one is on the other side. You may have different beliefs with your higher power, and that's okay, whatever that is. The reality is you're still alone here physically. So when I talk about widowhood too, I wanted to bring this up. When most people hear that someone's a widow, they automatically assume that they may be in their 50s, 60s, 70s, 80s, or 90s, as we can say some of the older generations. But let's be very real. I've known widows 19 and 20, 21 years old. I have known widows from military situations where their very young one was deployed and did not make it home. I have known widows, it is common for some folks to marry right outside of high school at 18 years old. Maybe there was an accident or a very serious issue that arose and they lost their loved one. So we are talking about all different ages. And when we talk about the grief that comes with widowhood, it comes with every age, every single age. So today I did want to talk to you about more in depth about the grieving process that we go through. I've covered it in the 2 other episodes, how there is shock, and then we'll try to make some emotional bargains with ourselves, and we get angry, and we hopefully get to a point of acceptance, and after that acceptance is that resolution. Now let me tell you something about grief. As I've told you in the other 2 episodes, it's not going away. If it goes away and you go on with your life like nothing happened, something's going to come back at you at some point, because it's going to come out, whether it's in dysfunctional relationships, where it's in torn families, where it's in financial catastrophes, where it's in complete anxiety or severe depression where you're wanting to hurt yourself. It will manifest itself. So one of the things that I completely encourage you to do is take control of that grief and understand it, and learn to accept this part early on. Grief is with you 24/7. If you are so in love with this person and you feel so lost, you are grieving. And that kind of pain, there is no definition for it. There is no time, place for it. It's just there. And what you have to do, and you do have control of, is what are you going to let it do to you and with you in your life? You can take control of it. The first way you take control of it is by education and learning that going through the grieving process is natural and it's normal, because as humans we are born with a heart and we have feelings. We have feelings. And for some of you like me who may have had someone with a terminal illness and knew you were going to lose them, thought, I'll be able to get through this, and then all of a sudden you're like, I don't know what I'm going to do with myself anymore. The whole entire world is different. I can't do this. You can do this. You don't have to like it, but we have to respect it. I learned that early on. I'm going to accept this grief, and I don't have to like it, but I do have to respect it. When I started respecting it, my life got better. It got better in ways how I did do more things. I got out more. I went out to eat alone. I learned to do that and I like it. I learned to go to movies alone and I like it. I learned to volunteer in places and I like it. I learned to pick back up with friends that I had not been able to be in contact with in a long time because of his illness, and I like it. And I had to understand and educate myself, even though I am a licensed mental health provider and can tell you every definition of emotional grief. That doesn't mean that I was able to quickly identify it in myself. Why? Because I was in shock. When we're in shock, we don't always know that we're in shock. We sort of know something's wrong, and I want to feel better. I want to feel better. I just want all this to go away, and I want to feel better. Though, guess what? That doesn't happen. And why doesn't it happen? Because unfortunately, we do have to go through some part of a grieving process before we begin to feel better. You want it to be Christmas yesterday, but grief does not move on the same speed limit as we do. So one of the things that you have to do early on is, if you like to read, you've got a computer in front of you that you can go through many good things to read about when it comes to the grief process and the emotions that it involves. You can, if you have the energy, and I do encourage it, find a therapist. I have found this. The older generations are more elusive to contacting a therapist and going through a therapeutic formal process. Although I do know that some of those on the older generation side will go to a church widow support group. They have their places. They have their places. I'm just going to say that. They have their places, and they're not always equipped with a professional to help mediate and get through. But if you go there, and I'm just going to say it, if you're going there for the rationale of meeting another widow so that you have a widow that you can maybe date and go out with, that's not the reason to go to that support group. I know it's done, but it's not the reason. I do truly encourage you, if you're going to seek out therapy, do it one-on-one at first. There are so many Medicare providers, mental health providers, Medicare providers that will do a visit with you, just like I'm doing right here. We call it telehealth, telemed, and we will do it video with you. Now, if you do, other insurance companies do that as well, folks. If you do that with your insurance company, I certainly do encourage it. This is the one question I want to ask. Once you get set up through that service, please ask if you're going to see the same therapist every time, because no one wants to start that first visit with the therapist that you were worried about. You didn't know how it was going to be. It was a little bit frightening and fearful. And then you got through that session and you just loved it. You just loved that person. They were just such an inspiration to you. And then the next time you have a visit, it's with somebody else, and you feel like you have to review and re-educate that person on what your situation is. So I'm a big fan of let's have the same therapist if that's something that you're going to do. Reading things. If you have other friends who are widows, feel free to call them up. You may be afraid to call them up, but I know that one of the first things I did a few weeks after at 4 o'clock in the morning was I called up a college roommate who was a widow, who is a widow, and I said, Karen, I can't do this. And I busted out hysterically. I hadn't talked to her in 15 years. And she said, yes, you can. And she also told me something else. You have no choice, but you can. We can do it. She said, just stay where you are. I'll be back in touch with you. And within the next day, she called and said, stay at home. Me and probably 8 to 10 of my other college sisters rallied right up. And the next thing I know, I was waking up at the beach with my circle of friends and my pets, and we were doing what we needed to do for the next 2 or 3 days that I don't remember a whole lot about. I remember resting a lot on the couch, going to the ocean, having my pup, us talking and reflecting and doing things we need to do. And the most important thing about that was I felt their love. And I knew after that I could call anybody at any time. Nobody was judging anybody, that I had folks to talk with. So that was very important, very important. And I still have them today. Of course, I still have them today. If somebody shows up for you like that, you still have them today. Now, what's interesting about that circle is some of those sweet sisters who came to be with me have become widows. And so when that happened, I'm one of the first ones to reach out and say, I want to let you know that I'm here. Anything you need, anything you want, anything that we can do, we're here. So as you get older, one of the things that you will find out is it is natural for us to lose people in our lives and people in our families. And when we hit 60s and 70s and 80s, conversations about end of life and end of life arrangements do come up. And so we have to, again, I want to encourage you to have those thoughts and prepare. Now, there may be some widows, some of you that are out there tuning in today, and you had absolutely no plans, and you are sitting at home and you don't know how he or she paid the mortgage. You don't know how the phone bill was paid. You don't know how the car insurance was paid. How do we do the house insurance? Is that included in the mortgage or is that separate? When is it time to take care of my car? What about the bank accounts? Can I get in them? Was the name John and Jill, or was it John or Jill? You know, what do we do about those things? A lot of people have come to me for therapy, and one of the biggest forms of stress was in the first months was just figuring out how to operate their home. So part of the things that we are going to talk about today regarding the grief is stress. The stress from becoming a new widow. The stress from becoming a new widow and the things that you find out. So what every single person, and there's been a lot of people come to me for therapy, for grief counseling, one of the very first things they always say that hit them in the face and they didn't know what to do was financing and the bills. They did not really know how she or he made the house payment. Or they did it online, but they didn't know the password. Or they needed to pay the power bill, but the power bill was in his name. And you called the power company and you said you wanted to get the name changed. And they said, well, you need to send a death certificate. Have you gotten to the part where you've had to make 10 to 20 copies of the death certificate and send it out everywhere before they will even talk with you? That happened to me a few times. However, I will give AT&T some credit. When I called to cut his phone off, they did ask for accounts and numbers and different things. And I just broke down crying. And I told her, I said, ma'am, I can't. I can't. And they were so kind. And she said, it's taken care of. It will be off today. It's taken care of, and we send you all our love and prayers. So, sometimes you just have to put it out there. Now, with my house, it was in his name. I went to the bank. I'm not going to tell you the name of the bank, but I'm going to tell you can cut it down to 3 letters and figure it out. And I said, we've lived here. We've never missed a payment. He's passed away. Here's his death certificate. I need to know what to do to get the house in my name. Well, that person didn't know. I went back 3 other times. The third time they called somebody up in Chicago, Illinois. That person didn't know. It's like, are you kidding me? This doesn't ever happen. They just didn't know how to get it in my name. So the way they left it with me was, well, honey, you've never had a late payment. Just keep paying it. Which turned out to be a blessing because later on, and I had tried with another company, I called them to refinance and get it in my name. And they weren't understanding of what I was trying to explain to them. And the stress of making these phone calls was so bad at that time, I just had to hang up. So about 2 years ago, and I have to get the energy to call anybody now to talk about reorganizing something because I am a widow, because of the menus that you have to go through. Well, press 1 for this, press this for this. You get to 8 and 9, you don't even hear it anymore. Then when you get them on the line, they don't tell you anything that you need to know, and you're hanging up in tears. So now I have tremendous anxiety about making phone calls, and I'm a therapist. I have severe anxiety about making phone calls. It comes from the stress, that comes from the grief, that comes from the anxiety, because the experiences that I have had in having to make phone calls to reorganize and reestablish finances has caused me tremendous heartache and tears and anger, because you can't get the other person to just do something that is so simple. Okay, I'm online, but I don't know his password. Well, we can only send that information to him. Well, there was one time that I said, after I had gone through it for about 10 minutes with a mortgage company who demanded to speak to him, after I said he's been passed over 100 times, I said, here we go. I'm going to lay my phone down right here by the urn. Here he is. Go for it. I just sat there. And then after about 30 seconds, they hung up. That's why I have tremendous anxiety and grief when I have to do anything. So, the best thing you can do with all of that is make a list. Make a list of the things that you need to reestablish or reorganize with your finances. It may be the mortgage. It may be phones. It may be the power bill, the car insurance. Now, I did not even know it until my husband and passed that we paid for trash pickup. I did not know that that was not included in my county taxes. So after 1 or 2 weeks, then they hadn't picked the trash up, and I did call them I wasn't upset about that call because I was calling to say, y'all missed my house today. And then she said, no, the bill hasn't been paid, to which that was resolved quickly. I didn't know. They gave me credit because of the circumstances, and a lot of times people will. So I got that worked out. But these are things that you find out. So you may have to get energized to make new online accounts. You may have to go somewhere in person. For some things, just leave. You can leave it as it is, and deal with it when you sell your home or property, something like that. But it does cause a lot of grief. And then the things that you find out, like he paid it online, but I don't know the password. Now, I live in North Carolina, and I live in a suburb of Charlotte, North Carolina. But I do not want to drive to Charlotte, North Carolina just to get a power bill put in my name. So you're going to go through some of those things, and you can do it, and you will do it. I would just say, don't try to do it all in one day. Please don't try to do it all in one day. I don't know that you have the energy to do that. Make a list of the things that you want to take care of like that. And be sure that when you sit down to make those calls, that you're in a place where you feel like you're going to be okay. And don't do more than 30 minutes of it. From 1 to 1:30 or 2 to 2:30, you're going to make calls about these two things today. And at the end of that 30 minutes, if it's something is resolved, that's good. If not, go back tomorrow and try again. The grief that you have causes stress, anything stressful, to become severely magnetized. That magnet of severe stress just brings that anxiety and anger and fear and tears all over you. So one of the things that happens to us is very simple things upset us, overwhelm us, and the next thing you know, we're crying hysterically because I have a flat tire and I don't know who he or she used to take her car to fix that. That did happen to me one time. I was getting ready to leave for work and I went out and the tire was flat, which on any other given day or situation for somebody, they would call a friend, or if you've AAA or whatever all those things are, or, get the Fix-A-Flat and put in it. They're simple solutions, but there was nothing simple for me. The tire was flat and I didn't know what to do. I had another car, but that I could have driven, but this right here just it blew my day, blew me away, blew me away. And the reason is because this grief, this coat of grief that we carry around with us, is still seething back there. And when you first become a widow, you can't deal with all of the emotions in 30 minutes and be okay. That's what I'm explaining to you as a therapist. When my tire went flat, it was a year or more after my husband had passed. But that morning it triggered. It triggered all of this, even though I had been in therapy and I was doing things to recognize and understand how I was able to cope or not cope. That was a trigger for me that day, and I fell apart. And it took me a good 2 or 3 days to get the issue handled. And then I had anxiety because I wanted to rush and get it handled. When now I can look back 10 years ago, what was the rush to get that tire pumped back up that week when I had another vehicle? I could have let it stay out there for a while until I called a friend or my son or daughter and we figure out what to do with it. But I went straight into overload. I wasn't upset about the tire being flat. I was upset because I had a flat tire and my husband wasn't here. Anger, grief. And I had to recognize that. And through the years, I have had to learn to understand, and I've expressed this in other videos, that don't let small things become an emotional explosion and it take you a week to get over it, because that can happen. That can happen. So when you recognize it, if I had been able to say that day, okay, it's just a flat tire. I've been through so much worse. That's my motto now. I've been through much worse than a flat tire, honey. We're going to be all right. That is my motto that I live by now. When anything stressful comes up or anything comes up that requires a little bit of energy for me, and maybe I'm not in a place to do it, I do tell myself, I have been through the worst. I'll get to the tire. I'll get to the tire. So with the grief, everything's stressful. And when you become a new widow and ongoing widow, a lot of things are very stressful that were not stressful before. And you learn through the journey that, why are all these things keep happening to me? Hasn't enough already happened? Well, if you think about it in another way, if you reframe it, if he had still been here the day that I had the flat tire, I would have gone out there and said, oh gosh, the tire's flat, Mom. All right, I'll just use the other car and I'll go in and tell him and he'll fix it. That's the adjustment. That's the adjustment. So then when they're not here and you have the flat tire, your world and the perception of the world you're in becomes vividly clear again. That person who helped you with all of these stressful things is not here. That's grief, and that's anger, and that's being overwhelmed, and that's being very angry that your world got torn apart because it's not in our control. And as humans, we like to be in control of ourselves, our environments, and the things we do. So when we have these emotional explosions, we realize again, subconsciously we're not in control and we like to be in control. So when you become a widow and as you continue your journey, I encourage you, you have to take some kind of initiative to get an understanding of grief. Grief involves anger, it involves fear, anxiety, which is the worst, the excessive worrying. And you're so tired some days. You're so tired you hardly got through the day, and you just, I can't wait to go lay down tonight and get some good rest. And you go lay down, and at 3 o'clock you are wide awake looking at the ceiling, and the wheels are just turning about, oh, I've got to do this, I've got to do that. Well, what if I don't do this? What if? One of the things that the anxiety king and queen do, they're very good. They start all of their conversations with what if. What if? What if I have that job interview tomorrow and my car doesn't crank? What if I didn't pay the power bill last month? I don't remember and they cut the power off. What if I lost the phone bill in that trash? I can't find it. What if I threw it away and I don't pay it? What if? What if? What if? As soon as you start hearing the what if voice in your mind, you have to cut it off. You have to cut it off. You have to get to a place where what if is just not allowed. It's just not allowed. I remember when I wanted to go back into public service after a few years, and I had set up an interview. The whole day before, I worried about being on time for the interview. I've been to several interviews in my lifetime and been just fine. That's what I forgot to think about, because what I thought about was, what if I get up and the car doesn't crank? And what if I get up and I get in that bad Charlotte traffic and there's a wreck in front of me and I can't get around and they accidentally hit me, then I don't have a vehicle and then I get abducted by aliens. That is where our thoughts go with anxiety. And you start feeling that my hands are tingling a little bit and I'm getting a little bit hot and I feel nauseated. You feel like you're having a heart attack. You feel like you're having a heart attack. And you feel like that your insides are just coming out and coming everywhere. That is a true anxiety attack, and that is a medical emergency. But some people in your family will do this. You need to just stop it. Let me tell you how I reply to that. Honey, if you think I enjoy this, you are very wrong. An anxiety attack is not fun. And what happens with these anxiety attacks? Okay, it might have been the flat tire that triggered it. It might have been my thoughts that were, what if I don't get to that interview on time? Okay, that triggered it. The anxiety that came out in the physical symptoms came from all of the grief that we are still trying to resolve. And let me tell you, with the death of a loved one, the amount of grief is 100 times infinity. Nobody knows how to even quantify it in a definition. It's just huge and insurmountable is what it is. It's this huge mountain, and it's way bigger than us, and it's way stronger than us. But the one thing that it doesn't have is our mind and our intellect, that we can take control of that grief and learn to put it in a specific place. The things that you can do is, as I said, if you're not going to formal therapy, read about it, the stages that you go through. There are exercises that you can do for anxiety. if you are a person who is starting to have more anxiety and anxiety episodes, this is going to sound silly to you, but it works. When you start the tingling and you're knowing it's going to happen, say the alphabets, and with every letter, you have to come up with a word. A, apple. B, butterfly. C, Colorado. D, dodgeball. And you say it out loud verbally. You talk to yourself. And one of the things that's doing is everything that's going on up here in your nervous system to start this anxiety attack to happen, well, you're having to talk, you're having to think, you're having to put together a letter that starts with the word. So you're bringing the railroad crossing down, and you're stopping the car at the tracks. So what you're doing inside here is you're stopping the attack, or you're interfering with it, is what you're doing. The first time you do it, the attack's not just going, the symptoms are not just going to completely go away, but it may slow them down, and it may give you time to get your breath and to reorganize and get yourself reacquainted with where you are. But the more you do it, the quicker it works. Okay? So anxiety, you're going to have it. If you're telling me or shaking your head no, I'm going to have to disagree with you. If you lost someone that you loved very much, there's a lot of anxiety hanging around with you. And so, we have to learn to recognize it, and we have to learn to deal with it. If you get to a point, especially with your therapist, that you feel like it's something you are not going to be able to control, and this amount of anxiety is so high that you can't begin to even start to deal with the grief, you need to see a medical doctor. And it is okay to see a medical doctor and have medication therapy for your anxiety, because when that anxiety goes down, you're able to think clearer and to function better and even possibly sleep better. Now, here's the thing, our older generation doesn't always like that. Our younger generations are much more open to the things that we can do with medicine. But here's the thing, it doesn't have to be long term. Most anxiety medications were developed for short-term use, and they have short-term effects. They don't knock you out for a week at a time. It's short-term. So that is something that you can consider. But anxiety, if you don't wrestle in that anxiety during the first part of your grief resolution, you won't get far quicker than you want to do. Because like I said, everybody wants this grief to be gone yesterday. It's just not going to happen yesterday. But what control you have in it is, what are you going to do with yourself to help this situation move forward quicker? Because the quicker that you can get through it and be able to understand it, the better you're going to be. You want to get to a place where you can talk about the passing of your loved one without falling apart. I'm not saying you don't have to shed a tear. I'm saying without becoming hysterical and falling apart. There will be a day that you get to that point. The worst is over. The worst is over. And you will be able to do that. You will be able to do that. Therapy helps. Therapy helps. So if, you have a friendship circle and you have some widowed friends, they may have already come forward, and you may be going out to lunch, or y'all may be trying to do something with each other, and that is wonderful. You may have that support group at church. That's fine. I just want to reinforce to you that most of those are just the folks at church who have become widows, and they're there for support. They're there for ideas, and that is a wonderful thing. But there's usually not a professional therapist there to mediate. And if you are going there to just meet another person so you can possibly have another relationship and go on with your life, I don't know that that's going to work for you. I don't know that it's not. I'm going to say that it may be surprising. So just be careful. I will tell you this. Most hospice organizations have therapy for those who have recently lost a loved one, and their programs are awesome and usually free. So that is another place that you can look. Another place that I told you is look with your insurance company. They may do telehealth video visits. And a video telehealth visit looks exactly like what you're doing with me right here. They give you a number, you call, we pop up, you tell us what's going on, and we have usually anywhere from a 35 to 55-minute visit with you. And I've done those for years. A lot of people like those. And there are a lot of people who can't get out of their house to go to formal therapy, so that works. On the other side of the tracks are somebody who really wants to get out of the house, and guess what? Their weekly therapist session is one of the things that they look forward to. They get out that day. They go and meet with him or her. After that, they may stop, get a bite to eat, and go get groceries. So that is a day that they are able to formally structure and get some help. So some of the things that I spoke to you about today is once you're becoming a widow and that grieving process starts, the new part of it is financially we have those fears. We come into those stressors of who did this and how did they do it and how do I do it now. And then that's a certain amount of stress that we already. Here's the death. Here's us worrying about finances. Here's us understanding, they're physically not here. Here's the day the tire went flat and I can't do it anymore because guess what? I'm now on the 18th floor of the building. And I started on the first floor. I'm on the 18th floor of the stress building, and please, when's it going to stop? You can start to come back down when you start to understand the grief and you start to understand that I'm going to be stressed for a while, and you start to understand that I have control over my emotions. I can get control over this grief. I can't do it all in one day, but I will get to a point where I will be able to function. I want to remind you again, the worst is over. The other thing I want to remind you of is do 3 small things a day. Just 3 small things a day. That's all you need to do. 3 small things. Vacuum. Sweep off the front porch. Take the trash out. That's 3 things. Wash your hair. Brush your teeth. Do the laundry. That's 3 things. Anything to give you a little bit of energy that is easy to do but will give you a sense of I was able to accomplish this today. That's all. That's all we need you to do. It's just let me accomplish this today. And closing up, as I'm going to tell you in every episode, you're going to be okay. The worst is over. You've got this. You can do this. My prayer for you is you will be able to do this, and you've got this. You really do. So please, again, I am Julia, the therapist, the Southern therapist, and please hit the like button. Please leave me a comment of how long that you have been in your journey, and please subscribe so we can keep this free service going to those who just need a little inspiration to get through the day. I really, really, truly would appreciate it. And until we meet again, may the good Lord be with you and your journey improve every day. Thanks so much. We'll see you tomorrow.